Evening, everyone. Time for another On the Buses question time. You know the deal. You post up your questions on the screen here, and I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. Just to say, during the last question time that we had, I know that there was people that asked about uniforms and stuff. If there was any stuff like that kicking around, I was didn't think there was all that much. Somebody did send me a few photos of shirts worn by Bob Granton on the buses. He got it through a third party who had bought it at a Elstree auction, so to speak. It was a flowery shirt that he wears in the episode The Inspector's Niece. It looks pretty authentic to me from the photographs that I've seen of it. And the buyer states that the back of the shirt has been cut away, obviously to make for the matching tie, so that would tally up as well. Obviously, if it wasn't genuine, then it wouldn't have little bits like that with it. So it looks like that's a genuine find. There's the shirt that the floral shirt that Bob Grant wears in the episode The Inspector's Niece. I haven't got any photographs to show you. I can't really show you on here anyway, but maybe next time when I'm on, I'll have some printed off and I'll be able to show you what the shirt actually looks like. So you know what to do if you've got any questions about on the buses in general. Just post them up and I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. I do hope to later on about 3 weeks' time. I hope to be heading down to Boreham Wood again, where I'll be photographing the I'm doing videos of locations in Shenley. Hope to maybe get something like about 20 or 30 of them. Might be able to get some more in Boreham Wood as well, maybe about half a dozen more that I need to take in Boreham Wood. So you know what to do. Just post your questions up there in the on the screen, and I'll answer them as soon as I see them. These are just some of the let's see locations that we'll be looking to take a photograph of when I'm down in Shenley there. I've got them all marked up and photographed. The screen grabs all there. So I hope to do all of those when I'm in Boreham Wood. So you know what to do. Questions, just post them up on the screen there and I'll answer them as soon as I see them. There is another event coming up soon as well that'll be interesting on the buses fans in Boreham Wood on the 21st or on Saturday. I think it's the 20th of November. It's the On the Buses Christmas social at that event. There's going to be Kate Williams, Anna Karen, Nina West, Sandra Bryant, and Wayne Westthorpe. Wayne Westthorpe, of course, played Little Arthur in the in Mutiny on the Buses. Be good to see him being reunited with Anna Karen after all those years. I think there's still tickets left for that, but for you to get the hold of the details for it, you'll need to go on to the my Facebook group. If you just hold on a tick, I'll send you a link as well. Just waiting for your questions to start rolling in, by the way. That's why I'm rambling a bit. I'll just see if I can send you a link or some details of that event. Let's see. too big a message I'm trying to send you, but post up your questions in the meantime. As soon as I see the questions on the screen, I'll answer them for you. I'm just trying to put up a link for anyone that's interested in attending this on the buses event. I'll send you a link to an email address that you can contact if you're interested. That's the details to the event on there for you, for people who are interested in attending that event. As I say, you can, Anna Karen's attending, Olive, of course, Kate Williams played the Nurse and Holiday on the Buses, Nina West played the Clippy and Series 7. Not me personally, Jane, because I'll be comparing the event. So it'll be impossible for me to film it. I'll see if I can get hold of anybody else who'll be able to sort of like film it, or if there's segments of it that I can film, then I will do, Jane, obviously. But I'm going to be sort of like comparing the event, if you see what I mean. So it's going to be impossible for me to be filming at the same time as comparing the event, if you see what I mean. But we'll ask around and see if anyone else fancies filming it. So any questions, just post them up on the screen. As I say, I will be visiting while I'm down in that area for that event that I posted you the link details to. I am hoping to get some more videos done and some more photographs of locations while I'm in the area. Shenley is about a couple of miles to the northeast of Boreham Wood, which they use quite heavily in the first and the second film for filming locations. Most notably, it's where the location is where at the lay-by, and they are teaching Arthur to drive the bus. That's up in Shenley. The scene where the Clippy comes out of the toilet in a pub and she looks and sees a man watered in the garden, some plants. That was in Shenley as well, it's a White Horse pub now. And the scene where the sidecar splits and the sidecar runs into a hedge, that's up in Shenley too. So there's a lot of locations filmed up there, which we'll be photographing and doing videos from, I hope. And also where after in the diegetic scene, when the Clippy jumps out of the bus along a country lane and goes behind the bush, and I'll also hope to visit that location as well. That's maybe about half a mile, 3/4 of a mile to the south of the village of Shenley. So post up your questions and I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. It can be anything to do with the cast, the crew, the films, episodes, filming locations, the production side of things, anything to do with the events I organise or the walking tours, anything like that, or my books, any questions about my books too. By the way, anyone who's watching who is coming to that event in Boreham Woods, I will be happy to sign copies of my books. So if you've got a copy of the book, bring it along. I'll be happy to sign it for you. That's any of my books, obviously. The A to Z of On the Buses, On the Buses, the complete story book, or my filming locations book, or the quiz book. Okay, you got any questions? Any questions? Just post them up. Well, not the on the buses one anyway. Obviously, that's the only one that sort of like lists and labels itself as a fan club, if you see what I mean, the Fourth Doctor. I know for a fact that that doesn't do anything like that. I don't have anything to do with the On the Buses fan club, though. That's not run by me at all. I've got big issues with that fan club in particular. Person who runs it's upset me greatly over the last few years, so I don't absolutely have nothing to do with that event. Neither does Anna Karen and a lot of the celebrities. They don't really go through anything that the fan club puts up. But that particular fan club that folds itself as the official On the Buses fan club, that I know for a fact that doesn't do anything like that. Can't say for any of the other fan clubs from like Only Fools and Horses, anything like that, Steptoe and Son and such like. I don't know if they do anything like that, but I can say categorically the On the Buses fan club certainly doesn't. So, you know what to do, keep questions coming, like that one from the Fourth Doctor. Of course, some people as well, the Fourth Doctor are, I will put it about grave visits. Some people see them as a bit morbid, like a little bit disrespectful for some reason. All of the Gerald, all of the house scenes were shot in our studio, not just from Series 5 onwards. Series 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the films, they were all the house scenes were shot in our studio, if you see what I mean. They would shoot externally houses, obviously, but internally they would all be the internal shots. Would all be back on the studio set. Oh yeah, I'm sure there are a few that have that have. I know Stephen Lewis has got one in Wanstead, a headstone, and I'm sure Reg has in Budley Salterton down in Devon as well. I know he's got a chair as well that they put a commemorative bench or something like that up in there that's got a plaque on it down in Budley Salterton. Bob Grant, no. Bob Grant would believe he was cremated. Don't believe he was buried at all because there's absolutely no trace. He wasn't buried in his village where he last lived, which was in Gloucestershire. Because I've phoned around all of the cemeteries and crematoriums in that area, and he certainly wasn't buried there. Well, there certainly was product. Hi, Dave. There certainly was in terms of on the sides of the buses, in the spin-off films. Companies paid a lot of money to have the banners put on the side of the buses. I think you saw Little Woods with banner on the side of the buses. Pontins as well, but Pontins wouldn't have had to pay for anything for that. That would have been in a return deal for allowing them to film at the holiday camp. There was also, I think, was it Guernsey Tomatoes? They would certainly have had the paid for that as well. So there was, I know for a fact that there was, I think another one was Rediffusion Television, if I remember rightly, the places that used to rent TVs and all of that. They were another one that were on the sides of the buses. They were definitely put there, but they actually paid to have them put on the sides of the buses, if you see what I mean. So there was a little bit of advertising, and all that funds went in towards the costs of making the film, if you see what I mean. In terms of products itself, on the on like food products and all that, don't think there were, to be honest. I think I remember in one episode there might be like a bottle of sauce or something like that on the table, but I think they taped over the brand so you couldn't see what make it was. I think I noticed that once, but I don't think there was anything like there was in the, as you say, the Carry On films, for example, where they were prone to the odd stuff like the Johnny Walker whiskey, the sacks of salt, and all of that. So you know what to do. If you've got any questions, post them up, like the ones that we've seen here so far. Can be anything to do with filming locations or the type of questions that you're seeing there, or anything to do with the cast and crew, or my books, or anything to do with the events that are coming up and the walking tours and such like. So any more questions, just post them up. I was busier earlier today as well, correlating a whole load of more filming locations to visit and photograph. There's the ones for Shenley, as I said earlier. We've got the Shenley filming locations. Got a fair few on there, like this was from the films as well in South Mims and Ridge. Right, I've got a question there. Yeah, he drove the bus, yeah. Just didn't do any big, don't think that he done any big major driving, because he didn't any long and dangerous bit of driving. He would not have been driving the bus. Mainly, you would have seen him would have been starting up the bus in the depot or returning to the depot, and that would have been him driving it. But he wouldn't have been doing any of the really tricky driving where the buses are travelling at speed along the main road. Definitely not, because he wasn't insured, as I've said before on these live interviews and on the ones that I've done before as well on my Facebook group. Well, that's a hard one to say, really, because the fan club wasn't, well, in particular, the On the Buses fan club wasn't started from, wasn't started by the time when most of the cast was still all around, if you see what I mean. So it's hard to really say about the relationship that it was, if you see what I mean. What I do in running these events and everything like that, I don't know, like I don't really come into the fan club category, if you see what I mean, but all the events that I've organised since like 2008, Anna Karen's been there, Ronnie Wolf and Ronnie Chesney attended the early events before they passed away. Sadly, Stuart Allen did, and they all had a great rapport with the fans. Anna Karen still attends the events now. She'll be to the next one in November, obviously. And we've had other like the late Harry Fielder. He was at every event until he sadly passed away just a few months back, about a year ago or something like that was now. You also have a whole load of other, like John Lyons is really great at our events as well. So there are a lot that are really supportive, and they really put in some really good input into the event. Sandra Blank's been to a few now, as has some of the crew as well. We've got two Hammer runners who attend. Who are really great. Brian Reynolds and Phil Campbell. They've actually brought along the banner to the event that's on the side of the bus that says Windsor Safari Park bus tour. That was actually on the side of the bus. One of them actually managed to take it when they finished filming. It's the original banner. They come to our events quite frequently as well. So yeah, there are quite a fair few. In terms of the main cast, as I say, these sorts of events and such like haven't started by the time, sadly, Bob had passed away, Doris had passed away, Michael had passed away. Reg was in his 90s by that time, so it's really too much to expect him to travel from away down in Devon up to Boreham Wood, if you see what I mean. It's just not doable, if you see what I mean. So of the main cast, the only one that has attended the events that I've organised has been Anna Karen. She's done an event up in Prestatyn, and she's probably done about I don't know, maybe about half a dozen, 6 or 7 events in Boreham Wood as well. And it depends what you say by best relationship, because it's a bit open-ended. Like, how would you define the best? I always like to think that the guests that attend our events are the ones that have a lot of information, a lot of input, a lot of juicy bits of behind-the-scenes stuff. And I always find that John Lyons was very good for that. The producer, Stuart Allen, sadly, he's passed away as well. He was excellent for that kind of thing as well. So they're the ones that spring to mind, I would say, off the top of my head. Anna's a lot more guarded about what she says. I think she's a little bit more old school, but once she gets to know people a little bit better, she's more open with them, if you see what I mean. Okay, keep your messages coming in and your questions, and I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. Yeah, but going back to your question as well, Dave, about Stan really driving the buses. As I say, he did have a license to drive the buses, but he wasn't insured. And so obviously the likes of Eastern National weren't going to allow an uninsured driver to do any dangerous driving on the buses. If he had an accident, God knows how much he would have got sued and everything like that. Would have been astronomical, and sort of risk that they wouldn't have been willing to take, especially when they were doing LWT such a big favour in the first place by allowing the use of their depot and their buses, if you see what I mean. Same goes for Hammer with the films, really. I mean, Hammer couldn't really take the risk of Reg having a big crash and them being sued a lot of money. Oh, I should imagine that he did enjoy making it. never actually had his views on the actual on Down the Gate, if you see what I mean. It's not something he tapped into all that often, and there's not really interviews out there where he talks about Down the Gate, if you see what I mean. John, did any of the cast work together after On the Bus is finished? Yeah, well, we know Doris, Michael, and Anna. They done a stage version on the buses on A New Life, which was in Canada in the 1980s. So they definitely all three worked together there. I think just after the TV series finished, I'm not sure if that was when they done when Bob, Stephen, and Anna done the Busman's Holiday stage show as well. So there was those two instances that can tell you straight away as the two that spring to mind off the top of my head. Any rewrites following the fall? I'm sure there would have been some edits for sure. Obviously, somebody probably would input in something like they would have put in maybe the input into it, and they would have maybe or decided that they could have made it a little bit funnier in certain places. So there would have definitely been rewrites. I know that there was that for a fact anyway, because if you remember the documentary from um, about 10 years ago, what was it, Comedy Classics, I think it was called. And I think it's Anna Karen says that Michael Robbins, in the later series, he really didn't like some of the really insulting lines that were written in there. Like there was one line where they were saying that where they had Arthur suggesting that all put a paper bag on her head or something like that to improve her looks or something like that. And Michael point blank refused to do it. He wanted it rewritten, and it was rewritten, if you see what I mean. So obviously, we know for a fact there was rewrites done. It wasn't just the first script and it was away you go, get on with it sort of thing. Yeah, yeah, that was Boreham Wood, Dave, the one where they contact the police car. That was Torworth Road in Boreham Wood. So it's sort of like about maybe about a mile and a half north of the of Elstree Studios where the films were made. Hi Neil, good to see you here. Well, you actually see the police car twice. The first time that you see the police car as by the gasworks, the gas cylinders have actually been removed now. They're right near the Elstree and Boreham Wood train station in the town centre. And then, of course, when you see them getting contacted, where he says we stopped here last night to picked up a couple of the drunken tarts, thought we would catch another two or something like that. He says that's on Torworth Road where the police cars parked. Yep, Neil, surviving, all doing well. Cheers, Dave. So keep your questions coming in and I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. Hi, Lynn. The cast for the holiday on the buses, they stayed at what is now the Beaches Hotel, the main cast. So that would have been like your Doris. Well, Doris, I think, actually would have stayed at the family home, which isn't very far away in Bargoed. I do believe that's where she stayed. But the likes of Reg, Bob, Anna, Michael, Stephen, the writers would have all been in the Beaches Hotel. I'm not sure, it wasn't the Beaches Hotel then. I think it was I'm not sure what the name of it was then, but it had another name. I'm not sure if it was a Britannica or something like that. But that's where they stayed at the hotel, which is just by on the right on the coastline, just north of the holiday camp. If you see what I mean. The lesser cast would have and the crew would have stayed in one of the blocks that was they used for filming, and the cast and crew would have stayed in the lesser crew would have stayed in chalets, no doubt, if they wished. Yeah, Gerald, there was, and I think it still kicks around. You can get if you go around and look on eBay, I'm sure you can still get the odd game there. If you scour around second-hand shops, you may come across one as well. So, yeah, there was an on the buses game. I don't really, I'm not, I've said before, I'm not really a merchandise collector. All I've got basically is my books, copies of my own books, like. Another book there on A to Z. So that's the sort of stuff that I collect. Ronnie Wolf's book, My Life and Memoirs. Other stuff that I've got is stuff that I've got that were either made for me, like you can get this, freely get this online. An artist called Steve Lilly does these sort of pencil drawings, if you see what I mean. He's the same man that done the book cover for my A to Z book. Got one or two other things, but they were stuff that was either made for me and given to me as a gift, but nothing as such of note other than that. So that's the sort of stuff that I've got. I've got a little wall mount that was signed on the back by Ronnie Wolf, and it might be Stuart Allen as well. I'm not sure where that is. I've got it somewhere, but it's not close to hand that I can just show you if you see what I mean. Yeah, you can get them on Steve Lilly. He's called Steve Lilly, the artist is. So you can, if you Google that, you'll find his website, and he sells those pictures and smaller ones, and he sells these cups there as well. Sells those cups on there. I think that's his emblem on the side there, if you see what I mean. Steve Lilly, it says. And if you're wondering about the t-shirt, these are my own making. I made these myself, this t-shirt. So I'll see if I can send you, post a link up for that as well. If you bear with me, Dave, we'll see if we can get a link for you. Ah, yeah. There we go. That's a link to that and to the website. The budget for the films were average ranged from about 60,000 to 80,000. They weren't any more than that, so they were made on a very tight budget, if you see what I mean. I think the first film was 60,000. I think the budget was, and I think for Holiday on the Buses, I think it was slightly dearer. It was 77 or something like that, I do believe. That sort of range, but not by much. It was like they were all done on a shoestring budget. And of course, when you work it out like that, the On the Buses film is actually a little bit cheaper, if you see what I mean, because a lot of it was paid for by the product placement advertising on the sides of the buses. So they got recouped a lot of the money back that they were spending on making the film. But certainly they never went any more than 90,000. I think the actual budget was like 90,000 for the first film. And then, but once you take off the amount of money that they made from the product placement deals and all of that, it brought it right down to around about 60,000 or something like that. So the budget was really kept to a bare minimum. It was, but not for films, really, if you see what I mean. I mean, there were films then, like James Bond films, like what one was that? Like 4 years after the On the Buses film ended, you had, I think I think Moonraker cost £16 million, and that was just 4 years after Holiday on the Buses. So the film's budgets were normally a lot more than what the On the Buses ones were, because Hammer were a budget filmmaker. That was what they were known for, basically. Well, the first film was the biggest earner at the box office, without a shadow of doubt. I think, like as I say, in total it cost about 90,000, but it came back at the box office. I think it was £2.5 million or something it made, and that was the biggest earner at the box office of the three films. If you see what I mean. I think the second and the third weren't quite as successful, but there was still big money on us for Hammer, if you see what I mean. Keep the questions coming in. I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. Oh yeah, definitely, Dave. Christmas, New Year time, they'll be on over at that time, no doubt. So keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. There's been a few. There's been a few. Um, can't think off the top of my head, but there's certainly been a few anyway, Neil. Let me think about it, and if it comes to me during the rest of this transmission, then I will tell you what it was. No, it was talked about, Harry. That's all it was. It was planned, and all the plans were in place and all of that. But then the funding fell through for it. They had the script in place, and all the cast, the main cast, were all agreed to come back for it. But the funding fell through on it, so it was never actually made. So there wasn't any private showing or anything like that. The script for it is in the back of this book here. I don't think this is out of print now. It's called Ronnie Wolf, My Life and Memoirs, and there you've got the script is in the back there. I'll just get to the. There you go. That's the start of the script in the back there. There was an obscure question the other day that I came across just the other day. That shows how many there's. I can remember one just from the other day. Neil, someone asked if Reg Varney knew if Bob Grant was suicidal, which is a bit odd. Yeah, but you get to watch Gerald. You get to watch them on the DVDs without adverts as well. So why not just stick to the DVDs? And as for that, now they won't because they're still selling well, basically. So who holds the rights to the films now aren't just going to say, "Oh, we don't want the rights anymore," because there's always money to be made out of them. So they're not just going to waive all copyright rights to them, if you see what I mean. Yeah, it made it to the States, and they made the spin off. They made the spin off of it over there. Lots of luck. Um, Obviously, it wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been a hit in the States, just like Carry On films weren't all that popular because it's a totally different brand of humor, if you see what I mean. But it wasn't just sort of like in the it wasn't just in your Commonwealth countries that it was popular. It was popular in places like Belgium and Germany and Finland, Scandinavia, and all that. It was very popular there as well as obviously your Commonwealth countries as well. So it was a global phenomenon, if you see what I mean. I'm not really one for a collector in memorabilia, if you see what I mean. So I can't really answer that one. It's a tough one to answer, really, but I can't really answer it. Maybe thinking back that there was Reg's jacket from Holiday on the Buses that went on sale. I'm not so sure how much it went for, if you see what I mean. But something like that, I'm probably really most interested in owning. But that's probably one that I would like to own, but I couldn't tell you how much. I think it went for about maybe £500 or something like that. But I wouldn't be paying that sort of money for it unless I was really well off, if you know what I mean, Rob. As I say, I'm not really a memorabilia collector anyway. Well, I know it went to 66 countries around the world, I think it was. So you're probably talking it got dubbed into about maybe over 50 different languages, obviously. And I'd say it would be dubbed really rather than subtitles. Subtitles were more of a later thing, I think, that's come along. So I would say it'd be more likely to have been dubbed rather than subtitles, if you see what I mean. As I say, it went to 66 countries. Now, obviously, not every country in the world is English speaking. You've only probably got the USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand as your sort of countries. So definitely upwards of 50 countries that would have been dubbed into different languages for, Neil. So keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. So keep your questions coming in. Any more questions about on the buses, the films, anything to do with the filming locations, or the cast, the crew, the films, the episodes, my walking tours, or the events organised, or my books? Just ask away. It's just, I suppose, when I was going through a phase of craving more and more information, that always is something that when you're watching something, you always do wonder whereabouts it was filmed. So then when you start digging, and then I decided to start digging and looking for, it was initially twofold. A reason, I would say, around like 2008, when we done our first On the Buses event in Boreham Wood, it was a case of going down there to look around for some locations to do our tour of, to add it into the event. And that started the ball rolling, if you will, because from there it was sort of like, all right, I wonder where this and that, and then you just got an interest for all the rest of the filming locations as well, like from the TV series as well. Just piqued your interest, if you know what I mean. The first little bit of seeing locations from the films, 2008. Plus, I was 2006. I'd already started my forum by then. I had a On the Buses forum where we had a section on filming locations, where we would just sort of like kick ideas around about where they thought some of them were filmed. So that sort of like got the ball rolling, and then the event came along, and it was a case of finding more locations then, and then on to that from there. And then, of course, my first book in 2009, I incorporated some filming locations into that book. There's a handful of filming locations there. And then I sort of like kicked around with the idea of expanding on it for the filming locations book, which I started working on as well. So that's, I suppose, the long roundabout way of how it came about. Yeah, I do believe it was popular in South Africa. Obviously, it would have had that added little bit of interest, because obviously Anna Karen is from South Africa, so that would have drawn a little bit of extra interest as well. And it was a sort of country where it was English was spoken quite freely down in South Africa, so there was that interest and bond with British sitcoms as well. I think it tended to be popular down there as well. So if you've got any more questions, just post them up and ask away. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen there. No problem, Jane. I mean, these are a whole load of the locations. I put them into binders of locations I've still got to visit to photograph, where I know where they are, but I've not actually been to photograph them. Not at the time, obviously. These have all been found over the last maybe couple of years, 2-3 years. And obviously with the lockdown, you can't, it's restricted my traveling. So obviously I've got ones there for, a few there for Boreham Wood still to visit. I've got a couple that I can do down the what was the old Windsor Safari Park. There's one for Battersea as well, for that was in gardening time. One in Park Royal, where the bookmakers was, and from private hire. That one is from the inspector's niece in Hossenden Lane, North in Greenford. Park Street, St Albans, from the spin-off films. Elstree, just south of Boreham Wood, in the spin-off films. Camberwell, that was where the courtroom was, and when Olive got divorced. Some there for Hendon as well. Peckham, some there for Peckham I've got to visit. So if you see all the sorts of areas there, Wood Green and Palmer's Green in North London. Haywards Heath, way south of London. Lambeth. So you're getting the gist of how many that I've got to still visit, if you know what I mean. It's certainly an ongoing thing. Crouch End and up in North London. Deserth in North Wales. Prestatyn, a few at the holiday camp, some different angles to catch yet. Notting Hill, so they filmed the vacancy for Inspector episode up there. Uxbridge, a few more of the railway bridge and radio control. Enfield. Harrow, a few for foggy night to go and revisit and photograph again. Stonebridge, which was just south of Wembley. So a few in Stonebridge to visit. Kingsbury. So you get the gist of how many there is. There's more at Wembley I've got to get to. South Mims for the spin-off films, and Shenley are ones that I'm going to take in for the when I go down there next month. Question for me, Nicholas. Favorite guest actor who appeared in an episode. I would say it was you for Joyce. You know, that's who I would go for. I mean, obviously, she's really great in her own sitcoms in terms of Man About the House and George and Mildred. But I think she fitted in really, really well into that episode, The Allowance and Series 7. So that's who I would say springs to mind straight away. Just anything if we can think of any others that really stood out that were really good. I did like Nosher Powell's character in the one where he's doing the physio on Stan as well in one of the earlier episodes. And in the episode where he lifts Stan up when he's guessing the turkey. He lifts the Sally, the Clippy up, doesn't he? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Old Reading. It's not quite it's just around the corner from the entrance into Grimsdyke Hotel. Of course, there was a lot of really good actors who had small parts, but they really need for me to have a meaty part in the episodes, and You for Joyce did get that. I think she was a little bit lucky being at our Series 7 episode because obviously there was more airtime to be handed around with Reg no longer being in it and Michael Robbins no longer being in it either. So it was sort of like a good episode for her to be in, if you see what I mean. Obviously, your earlier episodes when you had the full main cast in it, obviously there was limited airtime for the supporting cast, if you see what I mean. And Pat Ashton's characters were good as well. The ones Pat Ashton played in the Stan's Room, and what was the other one? I think it was Dangerous Driving or something like that. So keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. Oh yeah, there's plenty of Jane. There's mainly 70s sitcoms that sort of rule the roost that I like the best anyway, who probably pad out most of my top 10 all-time sitcoms. You've got the likes of Porridge, Rise and Damp, Man About the House, George and Mildred, Steptoe and Son, The Likely Lads, Whatever Happened to the Likely Lads. So there's a heck of a lot of my favorite all-time favorite sitcoms would come in the 1970s. Don't know if I mentioned Rise and Damp. I think I did, didn't I? Obviously, the more you come up to date, then obviously the more, for me, the weaker the comedies became, if you see what I mean, and not as strong as what they followed. I mean, the only one that would probably make it into my top 10 sitcoms of all time from the 80s is probably Only Fools and Horses. And then after that, it would be Still Game would get into it as well from like the noughties and the tens, if you see what I mean. Like 2000, I think it was 2010 onwards that ran into Still Game. So they're the only ones that would be out with the 1970s. All the other favourite sitcoms would be more than likely 1970s based. So, like for example, On the Buses, Porridge, Steptoe and Son, Man About the House, Rise and Damp. Um, I liked The Good Life as well. The episodes that aren't repeated all that much then are the Series 1 and Series 2 um, episodes. I don't know whether ITV have sort of like relinquished the screening rights for them because they don't seem to get repeated when they do the run through the on the buses. So they might have relinquished the screening rights for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe because of the deemed poor quality condition of them as such like. I mean, you don't really see the Series 1 and Series 2 episodes getting repeated. It tends to start from Series 3 and then this run right through 4, 5, 6, and 7, basically. I mean, I can't remember the last time I've seen the Series 1 or Series 2 episode repeated. You're going back maybe about 2 or 3 years now, I would say, off the top of my head. But I have seen that one that you mentioned there. That's the Busman's Perks. That is. That's when they steal the paint and they paint up Arthur and Olive's bedroom. So keep your questions coming in. If you've got any more questions, I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. Well, that's not going to happen, Colin, to be fair. So it's not really one that I can answer, because I know for a fact that will never happen. There's many reasons why it will never happen. First of all, they won't get the rights to make it happen, because the writers were very strong in the thought that the thing that made On the Buses successful, the success it was the cast. And so there was nothing left after the cast had gone. There was no way that we'd ever be coming back as far as the writers were concerned. And obviously, the rights now are held by the estates of Ronnie Wolf, Ronnie Chesney. So obviously, they'll understand what the feeling was about any idea of a remake. That's how I'm sure it wouldn't get made. And anyway, how would it be possible to make it now? If you think about the situations you don't have conductors on buses. The buses are all fitted with sat-nav and such like, so there wouldn't be any chance of the buses running late or the buses doing any skives. And you don't have any inspectors, so what is left of on the buses that they could do? Nothing, barring from setting it back in the 1960s or 70s, which would be darn near impossible to do, because they would need to spend a heck of a lot of money on getting vehicles in, and also doing a lot of photoshopping the external filming locations and such like, which we'd need to do to take out things like satellite dishes and things like that. So it's never going to happen anyway. And to be honest, no, it wouldn't. Even if it did get to a stage when it was made with a new cast, it'd be a load of tripe. Why do I say that? Because that's what remakes are, tripe. I could be here for maybe about a good couple of hours trying to scratch my head to think of any remake I've ever seen that was any good. Just need to look at the recent Porridge it was made. So it could make you bloody cry, it could. It was so rubbish. Yeah, hi Scotty. Yeah, that's good to hear. Where's that? Where have you been joining the locations? On the videos I've got here, or is that on my Facebook group? Well, it isn't actually now, Scotty. It's actually moved. It used to be there, but it's actually moved to. If you go down Clarendon Road is the road that leads up to the Butler House, which is just at the top of it. It becomes Malden Road. That's where the Butler House is. Halfway up Clarendon Road, you've got the turn into BBC Elstree Studios. And right ahead of you there is where the EastEnders set is now. It's actually been moved over to that part of the studios. But it did used to be up and over by the Butler House. That's where it actually was, but they've actually moved it now to a different part of the studios. I think it was something to do with the because if they're wanting to start filming it and releasing it in HD, and the old set wasn't up to HD standards, filming in HD or something like that. Yep, they are. I mean, it really annoys me when I get people on my Facebook group coming up and saying, should they remake On the Buses, or they start saying, oh, I want such and such and a remake of On the Buses. Why? One simple question. Why? It really is sort of like annoying, basically. It's like asking who you would want to see on a new band called the Beatles or something like that, taking off Beatles songs. Well, nobody, because you're not going to be able to replace them. So what's the point? Enjoy what you've got and remember them as they were, and you won't go far wrong from there. But remakes, nah. Yeah, Pontins and Prestatyn Sands is the name of the holiday camp in Pontins. So keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. Nah, that's not Yarmouth High Street. That's in Will. That's the High Street in Will, Scotty. Will was a seaside town about 2 miles to the west of Prestatyn. Like he mentions that in one of the episodes, he's meant to be about 35 or something like that, and on the buses. Rubbish, Rob. That's what I think of it. Absolute rubbish. I like it. I liken it to how Ronnie Barker feels about the Ronnie Barker. There was a not the 9 o'clock sketch done by Mel Smith and Griff Leaf Jones, where they're absolutely ripping the Mickey out of the two Ronnies sketch, the way they're doing a mock of our two Ronnies sketch, where they're absolutely taking the Mickey out of the two Ronnies. And Ronnie Barker was not best pleased at all. He was very angry about it. That's how I see that Harry Enfield sketch. It's not done with any love at all whatsoever. It's just a blatant Mickey take along the buses. So I hate it, basically, Rob. It's not like it was done with any affection or anything like that. So, yeah, see you, Nicholas. Thanks for popping in and asking questions. And that's the way that Ronnie Barker felt about the Mel Smith and Griff Rhys Jones sketch. So keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. Yeah, the first aid room. Yeah, it's just you use it to store the tricycles that they've got in their camp. Use it to store and repair the tricycles. Nah, I don't, Tony. I mean, they're not released on the buses, so you've got no chance of Don't Drink the Water being released on Blu-ray. Let's be honest here. If On the Buses isn't going to be released, then On the Buses was 20 times better than Don't Drink the Water. Don't Drink the Water's got no chance of being released. Yeah, back at Elstree Studios, Scotty, that's right. Let's see. I don't know what you mean round the back of the depot, because you don't actually ever see around the back of the depot. The depot was Soundstage 5 at the car park at where there's a Tesco Extra now. So I don't see what you mean about the curbstones. Which locations are you talking about? Because you don't actually ever see what is behind the back of the depot and the spin-off films. If you're talking about the TV series, which you must be now, yeah. I don't think that they are, if you're being honest. I'm on Google Street View. I'll just go and check for you, because it's better than going in and digging out my old photographs from locations when I visited them. I'll just go down there and visit right now on Google Street View, and I can tell you that straight away. Let's see. Computer's a bit slow and refreshing. Just wait until it refreshes. I'll tell you in a minute. There is dropped curbs there, but I don't think that is what was actually dropped at the time of the filming, if you see what I mean. The dropped curb that's there down the side of Redvers Road, which would have been the rear entrance into the bus depot. The dropped curb that's there now is just a little bit south of the entrance out of Buller Road, which a lot of the buses, one or two of the times you see a bus come down there and turning into the rear of the depot. But the problem with that is when they used to come out of Buller Road, the buses, they used to turn a little bit before going into the rear of the depot. But whereas now where the drop down road is, the bus would actually turn this way to go to the drop down road. So the drop down curb that's there now isn't the drop down curb that was there for the depot, if you see what I mean. That's been put in to facilitate a drive into via car parking for Omnibus House, if you see what I mean. Okay, no problem. Yeah, that's up in Borehamwood as well, Scotty. First Road, Borehamwood. So keep your questions coming in. So keep your questions coming in. Oh, it's Blakey getting, it was Stephen Lewis getting splashed without a shadow of a doubt. Not the one on the gate, obviously, that would have been just a stuntman doing that. Certainly wouldn't have risked him doing it. He probably might have very well done the stunt if he hadn't have injured his foot in real life. So he had a sore foot. There was no way they would have him doing a stunt like that on the gate after he had already injured his foot, if you see what I mean. Yeah, she was in a Series 1 episode, a Series 2 episode called Aunt Maud. I think it was Series 2, Episode 2, it might have been. Let's see, I'll soon tell you. I think it was 2-2. Oh. Series 2, Episode 4 was Aunt Maud's episode, and that was actually played by Doris Hayer's sister, Betty Hare. That was who played Aunt Maud in that episode. Nah, not in the film, nah. When you see him sitting in the cab, it's just a back projection in the background. So they've got him there moving the steering wheel, but the bus would have been stationary in the studios with the green board filming. So they would have just been moving scenery in the background. It was actually, so the external parts that you see the bus skidding around, that was our actual real life bus driver. I think his name was Bob Butler or something like that. Would you believe? That's true as well. Nah, Tony, never made a film of Don't Drink the Water. So keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. And I think there's a reason why it wasn't made into a film, to be perfectly honest, Tony. So keep your questions coming in. I think everyone knows that question, Tony. Well, everyone here anyway knows it was Reg Varney. So keep your questions coming in and I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. I think you're talking about Irish Friday or Scotty. Well, you see one, Jordan, if you watch the very first episode, you got to watch the slow motion though, mind you. You have to sort of like watch it frame by frame when they're all sitting around watching the telly with the strike news. And Stan goes, they have turned it up a bit or something like that. And if you watch that frame by frame, you can actually see the sign man crawling around or crawling along on his stomach, and he actually turns up the volume on the telly. Now, they wouldn't have been drunk or anything like that. You've got to remember they needed to be relatively sober for them to remember all the lines and all that. So I wouldn't have said that they were steaming drunk or anything like that, because obviously they wouldn't have been able to say the lines and for slurring and all of that. So definitely not drunk. They might have had a drink or two, but that's about it. Yeah, she's in lots, Scotty. She's in Steptoe and Son, the Oh What a Beautiful Morning episode. She's in I think she's in a couple of episodes of the Sweeney. She was in Carry On Girls when they're unveiling the plaque at the hospital. Thanks, Jane. Thanks for popping in. Well, you get the microphones in a lot of things. So I've seen them in episodes of Man About the House as well. I think I've seen them in the opposite episode of Steptoe and Son as well. The microphone boom coming into the top of the shop. Cheers, Greg. Oh, I've already mentioned the ones that there are ones like Porridge, What Happened to the Likely Lads, Man About the House, Rise and Damp, Only Fools and Horses, Still Game, Good Night Sweetheart was a good one as well, The Good Life, Steptoe and Son, um, what's the Alf Garnett one? Till Death Us Do Part. I'm not all that keen on Ever Decreasing Circles. Don't mind Richard Bryars in The Good Life, but he grates a bit in Ever Decreasing Circles. I wouldn't say that's a reason, then. It's more likely to be something to do with, I don't know what the condition of the early series is of on the buses, Series 1, Series 2, like in terms of the quality of the whether they think that it's not quite up to being screened now on people's HD tellies or whatever. That's the reason that I would tend to think that they maybe don't show Series 1 and Series 2 because of black and white as well. But I wouldn't say it's just purely because of black and white, because they do show the later black and white episodes, which are which were black and white because there was a color technician strike on in 1971. So I'd say it's more likely to do with they've maybe relinquished the screening rights for Series 1, Series 2. Maybe they've sold them on to another country like Australia or something like that, who've got it for just now, and they'll maybe buy them back again or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, they wrote episodes on the buses after the main writers, Lonnie Wolf, Ronnie Chesney, had left. They're both noted screenplay writers anyway. Before they had even worked on the buses, they both wrote stage plays. Obviously, Stephen Lewis wrote the great stage show that was made into a film, which was Sparrows Can't Sing. Obviously, Bob had written stage shows as well, so they were very experienced. It wasn't like they were, it was first crack at writing scripts, if you see what I mean. Hi, James. Welcome to the channel. Hope you're enjoying it. For me, the favorite episode for me is, I would say, is "Do It Yourself." Just love the scene with the breathalyzer test, was really well done, and also the what do we call it? The scene with Arthur and Olive Gunk. I'm not mad keen on Terry and June either, to be honest. I didn't mind Sykes. Sykes was okay. But Terry and June was another that sort of like grated a bit. I didn't really like the Terry Scott character that he played. It's watchable, don't get me wrong, but it's not something that would go out of my way to watch, put it that way. Wasn't really a fan of the dynamics of the show and all of that. Like a similar sort of dynamics with Sykes, and I much preferred Sykes to I wasn't really keen on Sorry either. I didn't like the mum in it. It wasn't very comedic. The way that she was like dominating on it all the time. And it was sort of like a weird dynamic as well, because when you get somebody like that, you want them to be on the losing side all the time. But she was always the one that got away in it, which was a bit sort of like weird, not a good dynamic for a comedy, if you see what I mean. At least on the buses, there was a little bit of give and take. Like sometimes Olive got her own back on Arthur in their debates. Sometimes in the episodes, Blakey got his own way in the end over Stan and Jack. Sometimes they won out. But with Sorry, it was always the domineering mother holding the edge over Ronnie Corbett's character. So that's why I wasn't really all that keen. I love the two Ronnies together. Obviously, the sketch show is absolutely brilliant. But I didn't really like Ronnie Corbett and Sorry. Not so much Ronnie Corbett. I just didn't like the dynamics. Personally, I preferred Man About the House myself. I know a lot of people would say George and Mildred, but I preferred Man About the House. I like the dynamics of the family, the George and Mildred downstairs and the lodgers upstairs. It was a really good dynamic. No, not on the buses. No, not on the buses. They didn't. Although the rumor has it that Bob Grant dated Gay Brown in sort of like around about 1970s sometime. Well, that was part of the fun of it, if you see what I mean. And George and Mildred, if you see what I mean, that was part of the ongoing fun of it. Sometimes Mildred did win out. Obviously, like there was an episode that George and Man About the House was watching earlier where yeah, she obviously did because again it was a bit like the brew it yourself. But George had made some home brew and it made him a bit amorous, shall we say? Nah, not immediately after a holiday on the buses. No, on the buses ended. Uh, like how it went through the time of on the buses, all the span of it. You had Serious One, Serious Two, Serious Three, then Serious Four. Then the first film was made. Then you got Serious Five and Serious Six. Then the second film was made. Then you got Serious Seven, and then Holiday on the Buses was made. Now, when they were coming to the end of the Serious 7 of On the Buses before Holiday on the Buses, the cast that remained, which by that time was Stephen Lewis, Bob Grant, Anna Karen, and Doris Hare, they were the last main cast left in it. They all agreed at that time they weren't going to do an eighth series. London Weekend commissioned an eighth series. They wanted an eighth series of On the Buses, but the remaining cast that was left said they wanted to call it a day. They didn't want to carry on to a point where people were saying, no, not this old rubbish and switching off. So Series 7 was the last, although LWT wanted to commission an eighth series. The only time that it was there was talk of it coming back was away much later than the early 1990s. We're back on the buses. We were planning to reboot it, which we discussed on the year earlier, slightly touched on it. That didn't come about because the casting, the finances fell through on it. Now, to be fair, you could blame that on Terry Wogan because he was the one that was asking the comparing it all, and basically he spent most of it talking to Reg. Reg couldn't exactly shut up when Terry Wogan's asking him for feeding him questions and such like, if you see what I mean. So any more questions, just post them up and I'll answer them for you. Well, they're all set around they had to have their meeting in fairness because they're all set. It was a lot of it was set in the house, Butler house around the dinner table, where obviously it was the only sort of place you could get them all together for the banter, if you see what I mean. All the food that came from the London Weekends canteen, they just brought it down the corridor and put it right onto the set on stage 5 at Wembley Studios. The good thing is when you watch that video, the Wogan show all again, you can see how well they all got on together. There was still a real good feel good factor amongst them all. And it was almost sort of like had a feel of like a school reunion sort of thing, like when you all get back together after a long time apart, if you see what I mean. Yeah, Amelia Benton, yeah. That was a good episode as well. Lost Property, that was. Yeah, much used. Another who's used and he turns up in a lot of stuff. A lot of the time she's uncredited as well. No, I didn't like that episode, Scotty. Nah, that was one of my episodes that I didn't like. A lot of the episodes, the ones that I didn't like, they all tended to be ones with negative emotions. That's one. Another one is Olive's divorce, because she's always crying in it. It's negative emotions. And the other one was what's the episode? It's the episode with Stella Howard in it, who fleeces Stanley with all his wages. She works in a canteen and then she ends up getting a job in the manager's office. Not Tonight, I think that episode's called. That's what it is. Not Tonight, the last episode in series 4. No, I don't live near where it was filmed. I live up in Edinburgh, Scotland, Ian. Well, frankly, it doesn't really matter what they think. Does it, Neil? If you think about it, because they're not the ones that end up going out and buying all the DVDs and watching it when it's repeated on the television and all of that, and it leads to ITV repeating it again and again because all of these new generation of fans are enjoying it, if you will. So it doesn't really matter what modern day people think of it. You'll always get some people who will ridicule it and all of that. Tough, really. I did going back to your question there, Ian. I did have 2 years when I was down in Cricklewood, so it's sort of like and near the areas that they filmed in, which helped me. That was like around about 2014 to 2016, so that helped me. I had a job down there at the time. For a transfer to back up to Scotland. So the 2 years there, I put to good use photographing a lot of these filming locations because obviously I was really close to them there. It's harder to do it now, obviously, because I'm up in Scotland. So I was doing, yeah, the bloke that was in that played Basher. Yeah, he was in stuff, not a lot of stuff. He wasn't as prolifically used as some of the other people, but he did do a good deal of stuff uncredited. A lot of his stuff as well. Done stuff. Most notable stuff was like Doctor Who, Love Thy Neighbour, and such like that. And but he did have uncredited roles. Sometimes they were in really big stuff as well. Like, but you wouldn't really see him credited. Stuff like he was actually in the Star Wars film and the Return of the Jedi, stuff like that. No, that was the bloke who lifted up Stan's girlfriend as was called Nosha Powell. If you're talking about the one who was actually called Basher in the episode where he says, when Stan borrows money off him, and he says, "I'm getting sick of beating people's head, breaking people's necks," or something like that. That was Morris Bush who played that Basher. I presume that was the Basher you were talking about. So now I've got the photographs are all on the Mutiny on the Buses video on this channel. So I've got all the photographs of that. I've not done a video from there, obviously, because of the fact it would only be maybe a couple of episodes there. It's something that I could do in the future, though, for you. If I'm down that way again, I can certainly think about doing a video of that location. I'm pretty certain that I've never done one the last time I was down there of that location, Fat Lad. I don't get what you're saying here, Ian, there. I can't make out what you're saying about the houses in the opening credits. What's that of, the films or the TV series? Because in the TV series, it was just all cartoon ones that they used. If you're talking about where the depot was, it's, as you say, yes, flats there now. That's the omnibus house on Wood Green. Hi, Paul. Glad you could make it. Not one that was sort of like overly keen on. Can't say that I've seen a lot of it though. Hi, Martin. You know what you do, Martin and Paul. Any questions? Post them up, and I'll answer them for you as soon as I've seen them on the screen. That's just that's on Brook Road in Boreham Wood, Fat Lads. The bus was parked sort of like maybe about 50 to 100 meters west of the Boreham Wood football ground, and probably about maybe 200 yards, 250 yards north of Elstree Studios. It always makes me sort of like wonder why they've done it. But if you watch the opening credits of the opening credits of that Mutiny on the Buses, where they clippy upstairs and he says, "Oh, that means we're engaged." Then when they're actually upstairs, that when the camera pans in on the bus, that is Brook Road, as I say, about 50 to 100 yards to the west of the Boreham Wood football ground. But then when the bus is, you suppose, is parked in the same place downstairs, out in the street, you see Blakey and you see Jack, sorry, standing there speaking to Harry, the other driver, and says, "Stand by to make it." There's another bus coming along behind. That is actually another location altogether in Boreham Wood. It's about maybe 200 meters to the northeast of the where you actually see them upstairs on the bus. They obviously only had a limited time to film there, so they probably had to move and film the rest of the scene on a quieter road. No, as I say earlier, someone asked us, the main cast all stayed at the big hotel that's on the coast, which is just about maybe 50 meters, 100 meters north of the outer perimeter of the holiday camp. It's now called the Beaches Hotel. I'm not sure what it was called then. It was the Britannica or something like that. Yeah, obviously, Fat Lad, that was for in terms of cutting the costs. That's how they could keep it such a low budget for the films. And it was very convenient, obviously. Made it convenient because obviously they had less distance to drive the buses there and film the scenes. Obviously, that would save on things like petrol money for the buses and all of that. And it was very sort of like it was very good mid quick time, so they didn't have to waste a lot of time traveling to those locations to film them, if you see what I mean. That's why they could do the turnaround so quick. I mean, the films were made within a month. Only took them it was like a 4-week shoot. I mean, obviously, apart from the Holiday on the Buses, which was filmed in North Wales, the furthest they went from the studios for the spin-off films was Windsor Safari Park, which is only maybe about, I don't know, maybe about 15 miles to the southwest of Elstree Studios. That was in Notting Hill / Holland Park. It's a very sort of like an area that's sort of like sometimes it's called Holland Park, other times it's called Notting Hill and on Penzance Place. I think you see that exact same wall that they're hiding at in an episode of the Sweeney when they're driving down in the car that passes right past that location. And the same location as well, maybe about 150 meters up that road, back up and around the corner, is where one of the locations for the Winchester Arms and Minder was as well. So keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. So keep your questions coming in. Any more questions? Post them on the screen. I'll answer them as soon as I see them. Yeah, not say that location, Paul, is in the episode. Oh, what's the name of it again? I think it's the first episode in series 4. Is it? No, it's not that one. Oh yeah, is that episode, and that's when the motorbike crashes in the countryside. So you've got you see the wheel running along past an old finger post road sign. It's in a country lane somewhere, but whereabouts that is, I've never been able to track. It's really a really very frustrating location. There's just not enough pertinent clues to go on. There's a few that you see it from a long range traveling down a country lane, carrying along a country lane, then turning and coming up a sort of hill, and then that's when they when you see them have their accident. You see Olive lying on the road, the hot water bottle bus. So that's the locations there in that episode. It's just one that I've never been able to find. Sadly, one sort of like country location looks just as similar to another country location. Yeah, that was just round the corner, about maybe 50, about maybe 100 meters west of the actual studio plot, studio land. So, like, you had the Elstree Studios here, the plot here. Imagine I'm looking at it here, and the road that ran along down the side of it was White House Avenue, and that's where Turnaround Betty's house was. So it wasn't very far at all. It was probably like 100 and about from the actual depot itself. It was probably about 150, 200 meters to the west of it. The skid test was at the old London Transport Chiswick skid pan facility. It's no longer there now. It's our Chiswick business park is there now. That was in Peckham and Carden Road, where you see them walking. It's like right down at the foot of Carden Road when they're walking to interrupt Stan, which was a bit of the way that they filmed it. They're walking towards the foot end of the street as if they're going to obviously Stan's girlfriend's house, Sandra's, but actually when you see them get to the house, it's actually back up in the same street in the opposite direction from where they're actually walking when they're walking to the girlfriend's house. The girlfriend's house is actually back up that street on Carden Road in Peckham. Yeah, because that was filmed in January time. So it would have been cold. It would have been like in the middle of winter for that scene. Yeah, that was just done with a smoke machine in the studios. That's all that was. The bus creeping along, going through the fog. That was all just done on a studio set. Yeah, it's amazing what they can do with a bit of camera trickery and all of that. Keep your questions coming in. As long as I've got questions coming in, I'm happy to stay online. Not sure what you're saying, Scotty. It was well cushioned. There were, you had your lights of boxes and foam in the bottom of the pit, so there was no danger of anybody actually really seriously getting hurt, if you see what I mean. Although Stephen Lewis did choke on the foam and all of that that was in there. He needed to get his airways cleared when they pulled them out. Yeah, Anna's fine. She's looking forward to attending the event in November, which I'll be comparing at Fairway Hall in Boreham Wood, the Christmas social. So she's in fine fettle. Of course, when the motorbike goes in, that wasn't Anna Karen on the bike. That was the stuntman. That was doing the stuntman Tex Fuller, who was riding the bike when that went into the inspection pit. There was someone else who did go into the pit, though, that fell in the pit, but wasn't caught on film. And it's covered in my book there, on A to Z of On the Buses. It's covered in there. If you've got the copy of that book, you'll know who it is that I'm talking about. The motorbike and that, and the far off, the close-up scenes that you see the motorbike coming along the road, that was all been done with the bike being towed. The far off scenes, that would have just been our stuntman riding the motorbike in the same sort of clothes as the cast, if you see what I mean. So you wouldn't really notice the difference if you see what I'm saying. Because Anna and Michael, they couldn't ride a motorbike, they didn't have a license for it. Keep your questions coming in. Any more questions? I'm happy to stay online and answer them. So any more questions? Just keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. And anyone that's interested in that event I mentioned earlier on about Anna Karen attending, scroll up to the very top of the chat box, and you'll see details there who you can contact to ask about tickets. Yeah, I'd say so, Neil. There's an interview that I've got. I don't know if it's the one that I've got in here, but or if it's another one that I've got of Bob Grant when he says they all decided amongst themselves that they were going to call it a day at the end of the series. So I would say for sure when they were filming that last episode, they would definitely have known that that was the last TV episodes they were going to do. Nah, for me that was Michael Robbins easily. Michael Robbins, and when Olive comes back from visiting Jack's house in the cistern, and she says it's she said, "Oh, it's most embarrassing. The milkman whistled at me as he went past, and Stan goes, he must probably thought you were his horse, and Arthur's about to drink the tea, and he spits it out." To me, that's the best, because that looks like he didn't even have an idea about that line, whether that was kept from him or such like, because it just looked like it was a total surprise to end the line. So I would say that was the best spitting out of tea that I've seen in On the Buses, definitely. Yeah, in Series 7, yeah, she's done about maybe 3 episodes. No, it wasn't the best episode, Neil. It was it's not the worst episode either, if I'm being honest about it. It was all basically about availability and sort of like circles that actresses and actors moved in, basically. Like you'll notice that a lot of the female actresses that were in the spin-off films, like Amber Lawrence, Pat Ashton, they were all involved they'd all appeared in Hammer horror films at around that same time. So obviously they were well within the circles of Hammer, who knew where to cast the net for the cast, whereas Gwendolyn Watts wasn't in that sort of circle. Plus, as well, there's things like whether they were busy at that time as well. It's like people always say that with the Carry On films as well. Like, why wasn't Dick Emery in Carry On films and all that? Well, there was only so many roles that you could hand out for the cast and the Carry On films, the same way on the Buses films, really. And like I say, like they tended to be ones from within certain circles that they could get in. Being a Hammer film, a Hammer production, it tended to be ones within the Hammer circle of actresses and all that. As I say, you had Pat Ashton, who was in Hammer films, Andrea Lawrence, who played Turnaround Betty. She was in Hammer films as well. You did have some that made a crossover from the TV series, such as Eunice Black done that crossover nicely in Nosha Powell. Yeah, that's right, Scotty. Certainly did. So keep your questions coming in. Yeah, and sadly, you'll find that Pat Ashton, the only place that was ever reported that she had passed away was, I'm not sure what newspaper it was. It might have been something like the Daily Mail or the Times. And that's only because her son actually worked for that newspaper, so passed on that news. But apart from that, no one else ran with that story of her having passed away. The only ghost in my house, Paul, is me, I think. By that time, for the likes of Pat Ashton and EastEnders, it was her career was petering out around that time. Well, when Jesse Wallace was in it, obviously her career was over by that time. Yeah, Deirdre Costello was in an episode on the buses. I'm just trying to think of the episode it was, but I know she definitely was and on the buses. Soon tell you what episode it was. Sat next to her at our convention as well, a signing convention. Lovely lady to talk to. That's right. She played Molly and Not Tonight. Played one of the clippies, I think, that's on down Stan. I think she says that she's going out with her mum to bingo or something like that. So keep your questions coming in. No, that was Nosha Powell, Scotty. That was the name of the actor who lifts up Pat Ashton in the episode. Yeah, I'd say so, yeah. He was probably so sort of like much he done in his life, Nosha Powell, that you wouldn't believe. Absolutely incredible CV if you ever look out Nosha Powell's for the amount of different things that he done. First of all, he was a champion boxer. I think he won the British. I'm not sure what weight it was. Must have been a heavyweight title. He also sparred with, I think, Sonny Liston and Sugar Ray Leonard and Sugar Ray Robinson, I think it was. He actually sparred with them. He was a stuntman. He was a stuntman in a lot of the early James Bond films. He was a stuntman. He was also a stuntman in stuff like Demetrius and the Gladiators. He also had small parts in films like those. He was a stuntman in a lot of the 1960s war films as well. He was also a minder. So he was like a minder for, I think it was Sammy Davis Jr. and Sophia Loren. And he also, I think, famously, I think there is, he also ran a pub, or he was a bouncer in a pub in the West End, and he actually refused entry to the Cray Twins. The life that he's had is really quite incredible, really. Or he had anyway, because sadly he passed away. So keep your questions coming in. Any more questions? I'm happy to stay on and answer them for you. Yeah, I've heard of it. What do you mean, where it was shot? Is that what you're asking? That wasn't a matter of choosing green. That was the colour of the buses that they used. The Eastern National buses were green with a cream stripe through them. That's the colour that they obviously they were still in service, the buses, so they couldn't be spraying the pit and spraying the buses to another colour, because they were actually in service and would have been out in service either later on in the day that they had used them for filming, or the next again day. So they had to be the same colour as Eastern Nationals. As for, I didn't know it, you cared. You asked where it was filmed about. I mean, I've never seen it before. That I can remember. I might have seen it, but it was so long ago that I can't actually remember it, if you see what I mean. Depends who produced it. Can you remember the production company? See, with it being BBC, it's hard to really say. I know it's supposed to be set north, in the north, like in, but whether they actually went to our area like that to film it in South Yorkshire, for example, then I don't know. Depends if they had a Yorkshire production unit up in that area, like Yorkshire Studios or something like that. So it's hard to really say whereabouts it was that they filmed. I've never really seen it before to really get an idea as well to where they filmed it. Oh, the theme music was Happy Harry. The theme music. That was the music that they used for it, and so just trying to think who it was. Just trying to think who it was written by. It'll come to me. Tony somebody. It's coming back. Tony Russell. That's who it was. Cheers, Neil. I'll keep a lookout for that. I thought you were asking there. So if you know it was shot in Sheffield, then obviously, well, obviously you know they had production units up there because didn't they film? They filmed Up and All Hours up that way, didn't they, in Yorkshire? So I think where that is now, where they filmed that. Nah, there was no lost episodes, Dave. They've got them all. They've got them all. They never wiped any tapes or anything like that. As for the outtakes, nah. What you got to remember is, Dave, the thing outtakes only started becoming a thing when shows like It'll Be All Right on the Night started out, which wasn't until 1977. Any outtakes were a lot of the times were just left in. A lot of if you can watch the episodes, a lot of the outtakes are one for stuff that you left in. You can see in one of the episodes, Stan or is it Arthur comes in and hangs up his cap, and then it falls down. He's got to bend down and pick it up and put it back on again. There's the episodes where I think it's the kids outing where they're preparing all the balloons, and then you see Olive going to sit down in the seat where the balloon's sitting, but they just sort of like cut it, and then you don't hear the bang going off. There's also a scene when he's got the remote control bus. He's got the little lever on it, and you see that flies off. So a lot of this stuff they kept in there. They didn't say, all right, we'll keep that aside for whatever, because outtakes weren't really a thing of any note then. They would just record over any tape that they could, because in those days, videotape was like gold dust. Yeah, there was a band called Quince Harmon. They were they're just a few months earlier, they've been signed up by EMI, the record label. So obviously EMI were looking to promote the band in whatever ways that they could. So they got on, they suggested they do the theme song for the On the Buses film. That band had been playing around on the working men's club circuit in the northeast. And then thereafter, after their career didn't really take off, even though EMI sort of like tried promoting them, and then they ended up going back to being working on the working men's club circuit. I think it was like Sheffield where Neil was talking about. I think they reformed under a different band name. It wasn't Quince Harmon, and they were still doing the rounds in the early 2000s around the club circuit. The football match was filmed in East Dulwich. As the Basildon Bashers are run out onto the pitch, you can look across and you see a football ground next to it. That is East Dulwich, Dulwich Hamlet FC football ground. There's actually where the pitch is that they play on. There's actually the pitch that they actually play on, and on the buses, there's actually a Sainsbury's there now in a car park. Because originally the football ground was owned by Sainsbury's. They used their own team, used to play like Sunday league football matches there. But then they just obviously over the years they decided to build a superstore on it. I'm just having to think what I've got it in my book here, what the name of the band is that they came back under Quince Harmon, because they reformed a few years, many years later, then were on the same club circuit in in Yorkshire, I think it was. Reunited, that was the name of the band that they reformed and called themselves Reunited. So if you've been around in the around the Sheffield area, Yorkshire area, and all of that, and the northeast, that is where they toured around on the working men club circuit. If ever anybody's goes to the working men's clubs and see a band called Reunited, then that's actually Quince Harmon, as was. Yep, that is Fly Again. Apart from the main cast, obviously, she was the only actress to appear in all 7 series. Well, obviously, apart from 6 of the main cast, because obviously Michael Robbins didn't appear in series 7. So keep your questions coming in. Any more questions, post them up and I'll answer them for you. Yeah, that was Claire Davenport, Scotty. Yeah, yeah. Stan had our daughter called Jean, who was actually in the first spin-off film, who accuses Blakey of being a knicker snatcher. That was actually Reg's daughter, Jean Varney. She never took up acting as a serious profession. She went on to be a teacher. No, that's Eunice Black who says, Mavis, bring my towel. That's too far for her to travel. She lives down in Devon, and our events are up in Boreham Wood, so it's like it would be a round trip around about 300 miles. So it's just one of those people that it's just too far for them to do that kind of a round trip for. She wouldn't really have a heck of a lot of memories to share because she was only on set for the one scene and that was it. You find with a lot of the guests though have got sort of varying memories. Some people can remember a lot about it, like John Lyons is like that. He's got a great memory, he can reel off lots of things. But other people, their memories over the years come a lot more foggy and misty, if you know what I mean. There's not really a lot that they can remember about it. Yeah, that's Eunice Black you're thinking of, Scotty. Definitely Eunice Black. Was what on ITV or BBC? I don't know what you're talking about, Dave. What is it? Oh no, it was on LWT, ITV on the buses. BBC rejected it. That's who the writers first took it to, was the BBC, and they rejected it. They didn't see what humour there was to be had in late running buses, so they turned it down. So the writers took it to LWT because they knew Frank Muir was there, who had been the head of comedy at the BBC when the Rag Trade was a hit. So they knew Frank Muir, and obviously they knew he would know what sort of quality work they did. So that's where they took it, and thankfully they accepted it. They took up on the buses. Yeah, that's Gay Brown. Well, I think the writers felt that the BBC felt it was too working class for the BBC. Oh yeah, I know that. And Steptoe and Son was as well, but that was just what the writers felt at that time, if you see what I mean. That was one series I did not like, was Last of the Summer Wine. Just didn't cut the mustard for me. I know a lot of people like it. That's a choice, but for me, nah. I think it's because I really can't abide Roy Clark's as sitcoms. They're just very repetitive, too samey. They regurgitate the same punchlines all the time, the same sort of like storylines. It's just not for me at all. Oh, it gets. Don't get me wrong. It gets a lot. Pulled in the viewing figures and all that. But for me, it just was not funny at all. Really, it had a great cast as well. I'm not mocking the cast in it as well. It had some great actors in it, but it just didn't work for me. Didn't do it for me. But I think the overriding reason for that is Roy Clark's scripts. I just couldn't abide them. Even now, I mean, Ronnie Barker's a legend, a total legend. The only reason I can watch Open All Hours is for Ronnie Barker's input into it. But that aside, it's a Roy Clark script again. It's very samey. We regurgitate the same gags all the time. Keeping Up Appearances, another Roy Clark sitcom. They do the same again. And Roy Clark's sitcom, if you look at Keeping Up Appearances, you've got the barking dog. She always ends up in the hedge. You've got his bucket, not bouquet. Oh, how many times have I had that before? Boring. And Open All Hours, it's a spinning open till door, and that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? That's all very samey. It just regurgitates the same gags over and over again, like you can't think of anything funny to add into it. So I think that's the thing. It's nothing to do with the cast members at Last of the Summer Wine, because it was a good cast. It was a great cast that they had for Open All Hours as well. The overriding thing is Roy Clark scripts. So if you've got any more on the boss's questions, post them up and I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. Not really, Scotty. I mean, if you think about it, they didn't really hang around, didn't do too much in the way of having to hang around for too long outside the depot. It was a real bus depot anyway, so buses were coming and going frequently enough anyway, if you see what I mean. Most of the scenes that they done on the bus coming in and out of the depot and outside the depot would have been early morning time as well, when the road would have been quieter. I think you get the gist of that, where in one of the episodes you see a milk float in the background, which obviously, you know, milk floats don't only go around really early in the morning. The first episode on the buses, it was, I think it was the 25th of February, 1969. No problem, Dave. Keep your questions coming in. Any more questions on the bosses? Post them up on the screen. Answer them as soon as I see them. Now that's one that's sort of like a bit of a clip. It's probably about, that's Wash Lane and South Mim, so it's maybe around about maybe 3 to 4 miles to the east of Elstree Studios, northeast of Elstree Studios. So it's not a massive distance away, but it is what, about 3 4 miles. The road that they actually filmed down Wash Lane, that's totally closed to traffic now. It's only really used people walking dogs and a cycle path, because that road was always getting flooded back in the day. It was the main thoroughfare into London from that area, but now that they've built the extension of the A1 and it goes all the way into the city centre, there was no cause for that road anymore. Yeah, the Royal Ford Harbour Bridge, that is, isn't it? On Wellington Road. Okay, keep the questions coming in. I'll be on until 9:30. I'm going to call it a night at 9:15. I'll have been online for 3.5 hours by then. So hurry up and get your questions in for the last 10 minutes now. Anything to do with on the buses, the cast, the crew, filming locations, the events organised, the walking tours organised, my books, the merchandise I sell, just post them up and I'll answer any questions. Yeah, that was in the documentary, Scotty. They mentioned that. Just badges and stuff like that, and glasses I do. I've also got some T-shirts like these ones here. I've also got lithograms, lithofanes, sorry, which is stuff like where when you shine a light behind it, you can see pictures like that there. You can make it a cast, but when you get a light shining behind it, you actually see their faces and stuff like that. The badges that I've got are stuff like the actual PSV badges. Stuff like these, the Luxton and District badge, or Bristol Ludeca badge. Oh, that was one I done for the walking tour, I think, badge down in Boreham Wood. Stan's PSV badge, replica badge from the TV series. Another one from the walking tour event. Jack's PSV badge. That's about it. And some key rings. I think these are all on like a YouTube chat, my YouTube, PayPal page. So you've got like on the buses, film locations one. Again, another one of the Jack's badge. These are all key rings. Bristol Ledecca one. One is Symmetry Gates, and with a little bit of information on the back of where it is. A Stephen Lewis one. Bit of information on the back. Dorothea one, bit of information, Dorothea, information on the back. Now these aren't collections, I actually sell these, one of Elstree Studios, bit of information on the back of where it is. Michael Robbins, bit of information on the back. So you get the gist there, that's the sort of stuff that there is. Cheers, Dave. Yeah. Here's Scotty. So any more questions, just get them in. Just hold on a tick, if you bear with me. So if you're interested in those stuff that I just posted up there, that's the link to on eBay where you can get them from. Okay, Paul, yeah, thanks for popping in. Right, I'm going to wrap it up now. I've been on for, everyone seems to be drifting away now, so I'm going to say thanks to everyone for popping in, asking questions. Again, I'll be back, don't worry, I'll be back on again, and don't know how long, maybe 2-3 weeks time. Watch out for videos coming up as well. Or just going back on what you said there, Lynn. Don't want to ignore what Lynn posted up there about John Easter. He was an interesting character, shall we say. I think he actually ended up getting involved in like soft porn films. He was actually, I don't know if he produced or directed them, but I know he did in the late 70s. He got involved in stuff like that. I'm pretty certain that he did. But anyway, yeah. Thanks for everyone that's popped in, as I said. And as I say, watch out. I will be posting up more videos of the filming locations that will go to look at in Shenley in November. And I'll do another live Q&A around that time as well. Okay, so thanks for everyone for popping in. and I'll say goodbye for now. Okay, bye everyone. Good night.